um, opportunity when you own. You're less vulnerable to landlords that can go up to in your rent, decide to sell. Yet at the same time, when we start investing in these communities that have been neglected and their taxes increase or their insurances increase, then we owe it to ourselves to make sure that the same communities we're looking to help aren't harming them as well.
Right. Can you tell me about a time where you worked with a client and whose life genuinely shifted because they were able to buy their first home or go through that process of buying their first home?
I think every client's life changes when they purchase their first home, and much of it is because of the perspective shift, the paradigm shift. Your mindset changes. One of the things I tell my clients when we meet is we call it a burning sands. The reason people are happy at the closing table is not because you gave them a key. People get keys all the time. It's because of who they had to become to earn that key. Before you buy a home, it's the saving of money, it's the building of credit, it's the holding of income, holding a job, it's paying down your debt. And so it's a milestone of what that looks like. I remember I had a client, oh, maybe 12 years ago. It was really early in my career. She's probably about 65, 70 years old. And she was adamant about buying land for her family down in Sharon. And, you know, especially what I love about real estate is because it's intergenerational, right? I work with 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, all the way 80-year-olds and up. And I remember we're finding the lot. She's talking about what this means for her and her family, being able to build on it later. We bought an area of Sharon, didn't have restrictions, so she got 2 acres of land. And I remember sitting at that closing table and she was just beaming with so much pride. And so many people think that it's too late. And there was this woman, like I said, I don't know, 60, 70 years old, that was making this decision to buy because of what it would do for her family. And it's stories like that, changing the perspective from it's too late, I don't make enough money, it's just me, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years. All of these fears that often come across in our conversations, that when we get to that closing table, it's like being unstoppable. I mean, I don't know if you can relate to a time when something super scary, or sometimes I'm an adventurous. I jumped out of a plane for graduation. And I remember I was like freaking out. It was a tandem jump, and I was hanging on to the instructor, and he was like, on the count of three, we're gonna jump. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had no choice because I was attached to him. So if he jumped, I kind of went with him. And I remember just in the plane, on the plane, flying up, all walking to the door, being completely paralyzed with fear. And then that moment you finally jump out the plane, and that feeling that you get just floating through the air. And that's how I look at home ownership. I think it's completely intimidating, especially, like I said, you come from a family or community where it's not as popular, where every decision is the first decision. And when you do that, I mean, it changes you, the people around you, the family within you. It's a ripple effect. It's beautiful.
Right. I think just everything you're saying. For example, my parents were the first in our family, so my uncles and aunts have not, my grandparents have not been able to purchase a home, and so just us being able to purchase, my parents being able to purchase their home has also incentivized me. Like, if they were able to do it, I can do it as well. And like, this is not out of like reach, and like it's a reality. Like, if I set my mind to it, like that's something that we can all continue to do, and like it is something now that I can like visually see. Like before, it was like, oh, like it is a possibility. Like, okay, I could potentially do it. But now, like seeing them owning their first, like our first home, is like, oh, like this is genuinely something that I can do. Like it's within reach.
It's normalizing it. And that's what I think, again, when you talk about, what are the impacts of policies that have prevented minorities from being able to purchase real estate or own real estate, and how, like you said, I mean, you go from it's possible to why not? Why wouldn't we? It's I mean, realistically, it's probably easier to own than to rent. I don't say that haphazardly. Sometimes just mathematically, when you look at the math and the comparisons between move-in deposits and double deposits and security deposits and triple the income. I mean, at some point, some of these numbers start to cross, where it's like, have you really looked at homeownership and the money that you're already spending? And I think that's the important thing, is that you're already investing the money. You're already doing it. You're
Mhm.
already doing it. And so when we can normalize that conversation to where it becomes, can I to why wouldn't I? I think that, just imagine, whether it's your aunt or you or your nieces and nephews, it changes the trajectory, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars over time, over decades. I'm not sure how old you are, but we talk about what does that look like for you to invest in today and let that compound over the next 4, 5 to 6 decades. That's the security. That's the cash flow that we're looking for.
Yeah. I think just like we've been touching on, like we know that credit, down payments, and predatory lending is like one of the biggest like strategies and policies that we've been able to see, especially in recent years, that target like minority groups. Like, is there one in particular that comes to mind that you think does the most damage to like any minority group, especially in Houston?
I think, especially in Houston, one of the most predatory lanes that I see, and I might get slack for this, is the internet. And the reason is because oftentimes it's just enough to get the views or the headlines without the full context. And so it's not that it's predatory inherently,